Sylvia was married to Harry Fishman, and we welcomed her to our family. And Harry Fishman, of course, was the son of Golda and Sam Fishman. So Sylvia, let's begin by telling us when you came into the family.
I speak loud. I came into the family. I came into the family when Sidell introduced me. She gave Harry my phone number. He called me, asked for a date. I was going to say no, but I changed my mind and said, okay. He told me later, had I refused, he never would have called again. So look at it, I said yes. And the best thing that came out of that marriage was Elliot and Gary, two wonderful sons. And of course, all my sisters-in-law, there was Gussie, and there was her husband, and her children, and Elaine, Gussie's daughter, and her husband Manny used to babysit for Elliot and Gary when they went to high school. And when we'd come home, Elaine was at one end of the couch, Manny at the other, and the kids were roaming around. But they did a good babysitting job. Then, after Harry died, we were married 18 years. We had gone to Baltimore for vacation and to see Frida and Abe. And we went to Arlington Cemetery, and standing near, I'll never forget this, near Kennedy's grave, a leaf fell down and hit Harry on the shoulder. Then we said goodbye to everyone and we left for home. We drove home, got into the house. My mother was there with her cousin. I went down for milk, and as I run up, Elliot says, Daddy fainted. Well, he didn't faint, he died. And he went down and got a doctor, and the doctor said he normally wouldn't have come up, but Elliot looked so pathetic that he came with him. Well, after Harry was buried, I became a widow, of course, and I went to work. And at that time, you didn't earn very much. It was Elliot, Gary, my mother, and I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, but also 1 bathroom. And when Elliot went in there with a book, I used to bang on the door. Get out or I'll break it down. And he still does it. And then walking home from work one day, I got off the train. I had 2 blocks to walk, and I heard footsteps behind me. So I looked around, and a Negro man was following me. So I crossed the street. He crossed. I crossed back. He crossed. Then I looked, I said, well, something's going on. On the corner was a small grocery store. And I walked in, and there was a lady buying food. A lady. Little did I know it was Gussie. And I said, you know, I'm frightened. There's someone following me. She says, wait, I live across the street. Come with me, and we'll get my sister's husband, it was Helen's husband, Matt, and we'll walk you home. And they did. And I was so glad, because I was scared stiff. Then I happened to go shopping in a health and beauty aid store a few blocks from the house. And there was a nice man at the register. And we got to talking. And then I used to go in all the time to buy things. Now one day, at that time, if you bought a lottery ticket, you had to put down your name and address. Elliot and I were having dinner, and the doorbell rings, and a guy comes in with a bouquet of flowers big enough to choke a horse. And there was a card from Harry. I'll see you Sunday, we'll go out. And I said, Harry, who is it?
David.
It was David. And I called him up because I said, I have to thank him for the flowers. How did he get my address? From the lottery ticket. So it shows I did win a lottery. And we went out for a few weeks, and we discussed my children. He was divorced. He had one son who has since passed away. And I said, well, I have two children. He said, you know what? Let's become engaged. I'll introduce you to my son and daughter-in-law, and then we'll see what'll be. So he bought me an engagement ring. I was thrilled. And I met his son and daughter-in-law. And about a week or so after that, he said, you know what? There's no sense in going together. Let's get married and we'll be together. So I said, okay. But we had a very unusual wedding. We were married in the criminal courts building by a Jewish judge. And as we were sitting there, everyone who walked by looked at us. What are they here for? And we got this judge through a friend of mine, of David's. She worked for a lawyer. Her husband, she was black. Her husband was a detective. So when the judge, the Jewish judge, married us, the witnesses was a black detective and an Irish detective. And David took out a bottle of scotch from his coat pocket, put it on the judge's desk, and said, drink. That was our wedding. But after that, we had a wonderful life. I worked at the hospital. He had the store. I used to help him after work and weekends, and we did a lot of traveling, and we enjoyed it. Unfortunately, David developed angina, and the last doctor he went to said he has to have open heart surgery, which he did, a triple bypass, and it was fine. The operation was a huge success. So 9 months after that, he died. Elliot, it was a snowy day. Elliot drove to the hospital. I had just left to go home. And Elliot said he called his name. He turned his head and looked at him. And the next thing I know, the nurse told me, make arrangements. And that was it.
Sylvia, we are so happy that after so many years of missing you and Elliot, and we still miss Gary, that you chose to come this year to be with us, because through the years you have always been part of our family. I remember when you and Harry first came to visit us in Chicago, and you were a gosh darn it, and you still are, and thank you so much for being here and for sharing your life with us. We have about 1 minute.
No, we have 20 minutes.
Oh, well, I won't
good.
take more than
Okay.
5. I want to talk about Andrew Hirsch. His mother and father brought him to our apartment, and my mother fell in love with him. He wasn't even a year old. So she played with him, stood him in the middle of the carpet of the living room, and Andrew took his first walking steps in our living room. And he walks well now. Dee Dee, we went to your wedding. After all the festivities were over, all the relatives gathered in front of your mother's building. I had a movie camera, and I was directing them. Move, stand here, make believe you're talking. And I was so thrilled we'd have a remembrance. When I came home after a train ride, and we opened the camera, no film.
So we still have time, right? Okay. So I told you she was a gosh darn it. I mean, this proves it. But can we back up a little bit, and how about telling us about your marriage with Harry, the wedding with Harry? And by the way, Harry was married to Sylvia, I think, a week after or before Ben Podger. Because I know we came from Chicago to the weddings, and they were a week apart. There were two together, unless it was Dave or something. Okay, tell us a little bit about your marriage.
June 1948.
We had a very nice wedding. August 31st, the weather was beautiful.
What year?
What year do you remember?
Talking to the top of the mic, huh?
1947, because Elliot was born 2 years later. And Ben Podger was our best man.
And
He
married,
still
and he
is
was,
a good man.
and he was married the week later.
No,
He was
the
married a
next
week,
year.
either a week before or a week later.
A week.
Okay, so tell us about your beginning life with Harry.
He worked. I
Microphone,
worked
hon.
in the house. Then I had the children, so I was busy with them. But one thing I could say, I had very easy deliveries, but he was never there. I gave birth, he was at the market. And it wasn't easy, but you overcame everything. And we were married 18 years. And to David, I was married almost 30 years, because on our 25th anniversary, he was in the hospital. So I hung up a big card opposite his bed, but I don't know if he remembered it. And that was it.
We still have time?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask you this, and if you're not comfortable sharing it, that's okay. We'll certainly understand. But when Harry came home from the service, he had had a very difficult time in the Army, and even wrote a little booklet that I read. And I was just wondering, what was he like in terms of his mental attitude toward life after going through what he went through in the Army?
He was very normal. He liked life. The only time we traveled, we went to Florida, my first plane ride. And I'm sitting there looking out of the window, and the clouds were white. And I look out, and in a loud tone of voice, look, we're down south. There are cotton fields. And everyone laughed. It was only the clouds. But he enjoyed life. I enjoyed it up to a certain point. And I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much, Sylvia, again. We welcomed you then, and we welcome you now.